Councilmember, thanks for being here. Let's start with all the back and forth, with the negotiations with the governor's office. What is the city's current policy right now when it comes to working with ICE?
Yeah, it's actually pretty vague. And thank you for having me on. The council recently just passed the Abbott Amendment, which basically says that the city, the language is very vague. That's the problem with this. It
Mm.
says that HPD can stop somebody and detain them for a any reasonable amount of time. And that's the problem with everything that we're talking about is this terminology of reasonable amount of time or a time limit that they're putting on detention and things of that nature. There's
How
other
long
things.
is that? I mean, how long could it be?
It can be hours. That's the problem is it's actually not the time that's in question that's the problem. And I want to be clear about that because when going backwards in the timeline a little bit, the mayor had actually instituted a policy in response to HPD violations that officers could wait up to 30 minutes
Mm.
for ICE. Well, the problem with that, as we explained over and over again, is that there's no time delay on when constitutional protections go into effect. Uh, Case after case has said that when a lawful stop has concluded, so if you're speeding and you get a ticket, once you've gotten that ticket, the lawful purpose of that stop has ended, and law enforcement cannot detain somebody unless there's additional cause based on criminal concerns, criminal violations. You can no longer detain someone. That's a violation of the Fourth Amendment to the U.S. Constitution.
So do you expect this to go to court then? Do you think someone would end up filing a suit over this if they are detained over these civil immigration issues?
Well, I know that residents in my district have actually already filed litigation in court, not necessarily around this ordinance because this has been passed, but that their rights are being violated by ICE. And these are citizens of the United States that are also filing these claims about their
Hmm.
rights being violated. And I want to emphasize that one, Congress must act. Congress must address meaningfully the broken immigration system. That is not up to council to do. But what isn't a legitimate debate right now is the rule of law and our right as a city to act under the law. And that's what has come under attack is the city of Houston's right to lawfully enact laws related to local law enforcement resources, which are significantly strained right now, and the right to protect the civil liberties
Right.
of Houstonians.
Tell me about the lawsuit that constituents in your district have filed.
So there have been raids throughout the city of Houston,
Yeah.
and in the southwest part of my district, those raids have occurred. And the residents of the city of Houston have filed claims against the government, the federal government, for these violations. We're seeing this happen across the country, but I want to be clear because we're hearing a lot of misinformation that this isn't happening here. We need to just keep our heads down.
Hmm.
It is happening here. It is happening all over Texas. You look at Dilley,
Sure.
which is in our own backyard here in Texas, and the egregious, horrific, not only conditions, but violations that are occurring. All of that is happening here in Texas. And we cannot bend a knee, or this will continue to happen over and over and over again.
Do you expect that the ordinance that passed there at Houston City Council will end up in court?
I can't speak to that. That would be, residents absolutely have the right. I know civil rights groups are looking at this. One of the concerns when this was forced onto council, the Abbott Amendment, was that there was no time to vet this. We had been asking for the contract language that was at issue with the state funding. And it's actually the majority of this is not state funding, to be clear. The governor did not have the authority to unilaterally withhold certain grants. The overwhelming majority of those were federal grants and pass through. So again, there's a pattern
Oh.
of withholding money from cities like we've seen during disasters, like we've seen over and over again. But the we didn't get the language of this ordinance until it was less than 24 hours before we were voting on it, in the middle of public session, when residents have the right to come forward to speak on agenda items, whether they support it or don't support it. And nobody had seen the language. And civil rights groups themselves, I asked the question, what would you like here? And they said, we need time to review this. And there was no time given to council or to the public, who has a right to review this.
Um, when people hear this, one of the big concerns is, listen, if a police officer stops somebody for a speeding ticket, finds out that the person's not a citizen and might have a civil hold on them to be deported, if the police officer stays there for a half hour, 4 hours, 6 hours, that's going to tie up resources for Houston police that could be responding to other calls, right?
That's exactly right. First, I want to start off by saying that I trust local law enforcement. They serve bravely. They put their lives on the line every single day, and we appreciate them. And I trust local law enforcement regardless of immigration status. If somebody poses a public safety risk, local law enforcement has the tools and has the foundational right to do their job. Nothing in the ordinance that we had proposed and passed restricted local law enforcement. What we are concerned about and have been concerned about is officers being sidelined, waiting 30 minutes on ICE, waiting an hour on ICE for non-criminal actions. And again, I go back to the constitutional protections here. A federal judge here in Texas has called all this stuff is at issue they're called administrative warrants.
Right.
And it's a misnomer. These are civil in nature, signed most of the time by ICE agents themselves with no line for a judge to even sign them. And a federal judge has said, this is the fox guarding the hen house, that this is not the way that law enforcement should be addressing this issue.
A couple last questions. Just trying to put this in context here. What have you heard from your constituents since this passed?
Since the Abbott Amendment was pushed through by Mayor Whitmire, a lot of frustration, a lot of confusion, also a lot of upset. We cannot allow the city of Houston to be bullied. We cannot bend a knee, or this will happen over and over again. And above all else, we cannot forsake the Bill of Rights. We are witnessing systematic efforts to dismantle our constitutional protections and civil liberties, and the rights of the people of our great state are not for sale.
What kind of impact do you expect this is going to have on public safety in Houston?
But resources are very limited, and courts in Texas have ruled that local jurisdictions have the right to pass rules related to public safety resource allocation. And that's what we had done. I'm concerned about the time. I'm also concerned about the confusion. Above all, I'm concerned about the people. We are seeing thousands of students that are not going to school because of fear. We are seeing domestic violence survivors that are afraid to come forward and call for help. The mistrust, the fear is very real, and the economic impact that we are seeing gives me great pause.
Is the city seeing economic impact?
I believe so. We have seen restaurants shutter. We're seeing reports and studies coming out throughout the country. This is nothing that this is something we are seeing across the board. But when people are afraid to show up to work, when business and construction is being slowed down, that has a real impact on our economy. But it also has a real impact on people. We've heard it at council from wives whose husbands have been detained and she cannot support her family. We know of not only veterans, active military members whose wives are being detained. We know of children with no criminal background who were honors students in school and captains of their sports teams who have been deported to other countries. These are real lives being impacted right now. And again, any time that we as a citizenry give up our responsibility to stand for the rule of law, we sacrifice that which is most precious. our democracy. And at the heart of this, that is what this is about.
And then the governor says, listen, law enforcement, regardless of where they are, have to enforce the law. Not just a federal responsibility, but it's a local responsibility as well. How do you respond to that? Because if let's say someone is here, without papers and they have a hold, why shouldn't that person be, deported, especially if they already have, a judge's decision on that?
Well, let's talk about those orders right now. We are seeing thousands of individuals that have taken the legal route, have followed the process, who have protective status, and unilaterally their status is being eliminated. And just like that, they have become quote unquote illegal in this country. These are all civil in nature. Local law enforcement continued arrest and detention, again, by local law enforcement. You cannot detain somebody just because of a civil violation. And that's what I want to be really clear with folks about. Immigration violations are civil. They are not criminal. And that is not to say that we do not have a broken immigration system. But again, regardless of somebody's immigration status, if they pose a public safety risk to the public, to the community, local law enforcement has the tools that they need, and nothing that has been worked on or passed and then revoked tied the hands of local law enforcement or took away any ability for that type of coordination when necessary. All it did was say, when a lawful stop has concluded, if there is no other criminal reason to detain somebody under the Fourth Amendment of the Constitution, they're free to go. That's it.
Yeah. Councilmember, it's great to hear from you, and we appreciate the insight. Thank you.
Thank you very much.